you know, we had to deal with a lot of scarcity in our environment at different times. And so fat to us is really of a very primary importance. It means survival. And so that ability to synthesize fat quickly, of course, comes from the presence of carbohydrates. And it certainly would have given us a taste for those things as an adaptation for survival. One of the ways in which I think it's important to look upon sugar, upon these macronutrients like fats and sugars in terms of the type of energy that they provide us. I think that carbohydrates can be best looked upon, or glucose can be best looked upon, as a form of metabolic kindling for our metabolic fires. Okay, it's an anaerobic nutrient. It's designed, we tend to produce elevations in blood sugar during moments of emergency or moments of extreme exertion. That's where sugar functions most efficiently in us. Some, you know, wood stove analogies work well for me. And if you had, you know, we can look upon our, you know, your brown rice and your beans and your, you know, probably your sweet potatoes and your whole grains and things like that, fundamentally as being twigs, basically, on that metabolic fire. And of course, that's supposed to be the foundation of the USDA food pyramid, right? We're all supposed to be living on twigs. That's what we're supposed to be fueling ourselves with. Your more processed carbohydrates and simpler ones like, you know, white potatoes and rice, you know, your bagels, your bread and your pastas and things like that, those fundamentally function like paper on that metabolic fire. These things, they spike really, really fast and really hot. You know, things like alcohol fundamentally end up being like gasoline on that fire or lighter fluid. Now, if you have your wood stove at home, and I have one almost exactly like this, it's wonderful. At any rate, you have a wood stove like this, and all you have to heat your home with is kindling. You can do it. You definitely can do it, right? But what's going to happen is this little stool here is going to be shoved up in front of this with the doors open, and every few minutes you're going to be grabbing for a handful of kindling to try to keep that metabolic fire, or that, you know, the wood stove fire going. And it's going to be a constant preoccupation. You're more or less going to be a slave to that wood stove. And, you know, God forbid you should take a bathroom break or go have to run an errand or something like that. Then you come back, or maybe there's a correlation here. You try to sleep all the way through the night, heaven forbid. And you wake up in the middle of the night, oh my God, the fire's going out. And what are you doing? You're loading it up with paper and a little lighter, you know, whatever it takes to get the fire going again. And then, you know, you're continuing on. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room there. And your thought processes and your preoccupation is going to be with that. And yes, there are obvious analogies here. Fundamentally, of course, this is the result. This, in analogy, this relatively constant preoccupation. People who are sugar burners are very easy to identify. They've got the little snacks, you know, they've always got something in their purse, whatever, and they're constantly trying to add things to that metabolic fire. So what's the alternative to that? Well, what if instead, now you have a nice big fat log that you can throw on that fire? All of a sudden now, you have a life. I can't think of anything more liberating that I ever did for my lifestyle than adopt a fat-burning metabolism. I can do something like a duck egg cooked in ghee or something like that first thing in the morning at 6 in the morning. And if I haven't eaten anything by 1 in the afternoon, I might be a little hungry by then, but I'm not overly preoccupied with that, and I'm not, getting all weird and having snakes grow out of my hair and, getting dizzy or getting jittery or anything else that people get. I just, I'll eat something and that'll be that. And, when you're using a log on that metabolic fire to keep it going, now you have a life. You can go off, you can run errands, you can sleep all the way through the night. You wake up in the morning, you look in there and you say, oh yeah, the fire's burning down. I think I'll just throw another log on the fire. And then you go about your business. And one of the other things I found with this is that it's probably the least expensive way to eat that I've ever found. Because again, I'm not having to think about food all the time. It doesn't take much. When you eat a fat-rich diet, it's normally satiating, so you're not feeling the need to overeat constantly. And it doesn't take as much food to satisfy you. The diet is extremely nutrient-dense. At any rate, I think one of the mistakes, however, that some people make when they go paleo, they go low carb, but they're still kind of caught up in the myth of that sort of low-fat paradigm that we've been all marinated in. So you have people going low carb and they're trying to go low fat at the same time, and you can't do that, and expect to not get cravings for something. Of course, if the fire starts going out, your body's going to, if it's really going out, your body's going to crave the quickest, easiest form of energy it can find, or it can try to kick you in the keister to go eat, and oftentimes it's going to be the carbohydrate choice. But that's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make going paleo. They figure they really want to lose a lot of weight, and they're still kind of marinated in the idea that eating fat will make you fat, and so if you eat low carb and that can get you lean, well then, if you cut some fat too and just eat high protein, that's going to work well for you. And that's not necessarily so true.
Fat is the secret to human intelligence. The brain needs animal fat.
So here we go. I'd like to coin a little phrase here. I think that there may be about as many Paleolithic approaches as there are people in this room. We talk about the paleo diet in general terms, and yet it seems to mean something different to different people. And people come to it from different stages, different ages and different stages of metabolic damage. And I think that there might be a little bit of a Kinsey scale to the Paleolithic diet. That maybe, C.J. Hunt's version might be the 10 on the Kinsey scale, where you're just, lots of raw meat and fat, to the exclusion of plant foods and a lot of other things. And then you have people calling what they're doing paleo, and it's involving like protein bars and little kind of powders and potions and energy drinks and whatever else going into it, and they're calling that low carb because they're eating a protein bar, right? And or they're mixing honey in with everything because they think that was paleo, right? And so understand that there are a lot of potential hidden carbohydrates in people's diets that can drive blood sugar issues as well. And, I'm not here to pass judgment on anybody for where they're at. This is a process. We're all at different stages in this process. I started in my interest in nutritional science 25 years ago, or more actually now, more like 30 years ago. And, if I knew then what I know now at 50, I can tell you that my choices along the way would have been considerably different than they were when I was, in my 20s. When you're 20, you think you're immortal, and you just, you want to get in those skinny jeans, and you want to, have all kinds of energy and do all kinds of performance and be crazy, and all that's fine and good. Maybe that's appropriate for where you are along the way, but a lot of You know, when you're that age, you may not have well-developed frontal lobes and you're not thinking far enough ahead. Sooner or later, the chickens come home to roost. And I'm also here to tell you that we're not living in the world our ancestors lived in anymore. The world is a very, very different place. And we're being challenged with compromises to our food supply, to our environment, really to every aspect of our lives now in ways that are just, ancestors couldn't have even begun to have imagined. And we're a little bit like boiling frogs, you know? We have all these little things coming at us and we hardly think, or maybe we try not to think about it. Oh God, now they're irradiating the almonds and the vegetables and they're doing this and that. And of course, the laws that are being passed are entirely favoring now the profit-driven industries. They're not protecting us anymore. So it's up to us to protect ourselves. And with so much that's outside of our control, we need to take control of what we can. That's my view. It's not about being fear-mongering or afraid of what's going on. It's about being aware. It's not about being fearful. It's about being informed and about making smart choices, because nobody's ever going to care more about your health or well-being than you. And if you cannot afford to be sick, you cannot afford to not eat optimally well.